What's happening, YouTube? Eric Bauer back again with another video for you, VC. I don't know how long it's been since my last update. Probably 2-3 weeks at this point. Maybe longer, maybe not as long. I don't recall. I wanted to get this uploaded a little bit earlier tonight, but ended up going out after work. It's my Friday. Had some dinner. Hit up the bookstore and the grocery store. Just got home. This will probably be uploaded past some of your bedtimes. Probably past my bedtime. Anyway, I wanted to jump on this vinyl tag that's going around. You've probably seen a lot of videos regarding this tag. 12 Stone Cold classics of black metal. And I honestly, I don't know. Initially, I didn't think I was going to weigh in on this. It started as a Facebook tag, and then it kind of carried into YouTube territory. And one of the reasons why I was hesitant at first to throw my picks into the hat, because a lot of the videos that have already been uploaded are awesome already. I want to say Ben Smasher, Brain Smasher, Ben Brain Smasher started the tag. Marty soon followed suit. Ground Zero Salem, Scourge of Vinyl, right there, Nocturnity. Brandon from Scourge of Vinyl did one today. Travis, Lyricise 71. I might be missing 1 or 2 people that have already jumped on this at this point. There might be more up by the time my shit's uploaded. Who knows? It's the spontaneity of the internet and leeching off of somebody else's rad topic. So like a while back, people were doing like fucking 20 records that got me into black metal. And I kind of passed over doing that one. I did show some black metal around that time. Mostly first wave stuff that I'm addicted to a lot. I feel like this one's a little bit different. These aren't really necessarily the albums that got me into black metal. I kind of looked at this list as an array of albums in black metal that I consider basically perfect. I went back kind of far, you know, into the first wave. And I actually brought it up until 2000, I want to say, is the most recent offering that I'm going to be showing today, which goes a bit further than I think some other people's choices did. And to be honest, if I were to do more items on the list, I'd probably go into the 2000s. I know Travis did. Anyway, as far as those guys go, I'm going to link their videos down below. The ones that I can find anyway, so you can watch their choices as well. Anyway, this isn't in any order at all. I thought about maybe going in the order that I heard this shit, but that'd be fucking impossible, because some of this stuff, you know, I've been listening to for decades. So I just kind of went in chronological order. I have a cat that's flipping out right now. He just ate, so he's really wound up. Anyway, if shit gets destroyed behind me, chaos ensues, it's the cat's fault. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, I've shown this record before, a different version of it. And I'm kind of surprised, honestly, that Creator hasn't popped up on anybody else's lists. Sodom has, and I think maybe Destruction has as well. You know, I thought about it, and not only do I think that Endless Pain is a fucking perfect record, but I think that it honestly embodies kind of that first wave spirit of black metal, much like, you know, the first 4 Bathory albums, Venom, oh, Boo, Hiss, you said Venom, Hellhammer, Celtic Frost, Merciful Fate, you know, Sodom, again, destruction. This is actually the version of Endless Pain that Noise recently re-released. You can tell from the weird-ass cover art and the remastered right there. I don't actually mind that part so much. The weird effects that they did in Photoshop, though, I don't know how I feel about that. This is just Endless Pain. One of the other reasons I kind of went with this one was because it also contains the Tormentor demos prior to Creator. So that's the Blitzkrieg and the End of the World demos that both came out in '84 before they changed their name. I never showed this when I originally got it. I picked up this one and Pleasure to Kill, double LPs. The remasters actually sound really great. And I like that for the bonus tracks they use those Tormentor demos because they're hard as fuck to find. And like that Devastation Bestial Invasion of Hell that I showed a while back, fucking just embody that early spirit of black metal where they were still kind of experimenting with that sound and that rawness and that fucking evilness. It's perfect, man. And to this day, this and fucking Pleasure to Kill, probably my two favorite Creator albums of all time. I picked up Endless Pain originally back in mid-90s, this shop in Seattle called Cellophane Square. Kind of expecting something along the lines of like Hell Awaits, or like Bathory's Requiem, which I had at that point as well. Much rawer than either of those two selections. I love the Hell Awaits. In fact, that was almost what I went with for this early piece. But I opted for the Creator instead. Anyway, long story short. Next up, Poison, Into the Abyss. Another German. Probably some glare with that. This is a repress, and as far as I know, it's actually official. Nice tape with labels. Really dig those labels. Program just repeats both sides. What to say about fucking Poison, man? I mean, it's like the Creator ratcheted up to like 11, 12. Came out in 1985, same year as Endless Pain. And sadly, it's the only thing legitimately released by Poison. I mean, they've got some demos that are available. Fuck Off and Die has done a whole batch of Poison represses, including a box set at this point. All worth getting for sure. But in my opinion, beyond the demos and all the bonuses, Into the Abyss just fucking reeks of that. That's like that fucking foul, evil, thrashing, blackened fucking metal. And they didn't really have a term for it at that point as far as black metal goes. They were calling it either death metal or thrash. You know, but it's up there with like Sarcophago or fucking Volcano, but came out before Volcano. It's so good. I have a hard time rationally picking words that I want to use to convey how much I love this tape. I'd really love to find a decently priced copy of the EP on wax. It's been repressed in a comp, the Into the Abyss tracks plus some demos on a double LP collection called Further Into the Abyss. I think Iron Tyrant released that, or Iron Pegasus, I don't remember. And it's a fucking great collection as well. Well worth having. So that's the Poison. Next up, and I have shown this before a long time back, probably first year that I was doing my channel. Beharit, Drawing Down the Moon. This is my copy on JL America. I think at this point that everyone who has done this tag has shown a copy of Drawing Down the Moon. I could be wrong. Basic JL treatment of a cassette. They didn't really neuter the cover art though, like they've done with a lot of their other releases, like Disastrous Murder. Anyway, I digress. I'm deviating from what I'm actually talking about. Beharit. I discovered Beharit actually the same time that I discovered Archgoat and the next band I'm going to talk to you about after this. I picked up their first offerings at a record store at the same time back in 98, 97, 98, I want to say. Probably about 97, 98. I just said 97, 98 like 3 times. So, forgive me. And the shit fucking blew my mind. The Beharit especially kind of redefined how I looked at music at the time. You know, I'd heard some black metal, but this Beharit is so different than like In the Nightside Eclipse or fucking Full Moon Mysticism or Those of the Unlight, for instance. A Blaze in the Northern Sky, Transylvanian Hunger. Such a different sort of album. Not just the way that it's performed, but also the way in which it's recorded. It is a very claustrophobic, suffocating, it almost sounds compressed, like you're leaving a wind tunnel and your ears are popping, and you're trying to adjust to the sounds around you. It's super alien and very fitting of the album cover, I think, The Surface of the Moon. Not just appropriate because the album's called Drawing Down the Moon. As well, it was one of the most like ritualistic, occult things that I want to say that I had heard at the time that I first picked that up. And it just fucking blew me away. There's no way I could make this list without including that. I thought about it, and it just wouldn't be true to, you know, how I look at black metal to not throw that on the list. So the next thing I'm going to talk about, I picked this up originally at the same time that I picked up that, and I'm talking about Niflheim with their self-titled debut. Niflheim from Sweden, consisting of 3 guys named Tyrant, Hellbutcher, and Demon. I can't think of their names. 2 brothers, I want to say they're twins from Sweden, called like the Hard Rock Brothers or whatever. And then of course you've got like John Zwetsloot from Dissection helping out with the guitars on this fucking album. And this shit is savage. Sadly, this is a reissue from fucking Nuclear War Now. I want to say this came out in the mid-2000s by Nuclear War Now. And, you know, I'd rather have it on this than not have it at all. What to say about fucking Niflheim? It's unchained, off the rails, fucking blackened thrash. This album, though, I feel like embodies that early black metal spirit more than their follow-up. I can't remember the follow-up's name. Fucking got it in the other room. I could go get it, but I'm not gonna. Regardless, the follow-up was a lot tighter, a a little bit more polished. I don't want to say a lot more polished because it was still raw as shit. Featured Zwetsloot from Dissection as well as John Novate from Dissection on that follow. Devil's Force. That's the name of it. Anyway, this album, totally unhinged. Just vicious, savage, fucking black thrash, for lack of a better term. But it's like motor charged. But take the rawness of like the early Venom and early Hellhammer and ratchet that up about 10 grit-wise, and you have the Niflheim. If it weren't for this album, you wouldn't have Bewitched, you wouldn't have Death Witch, Midnight. I mean, you could say that without Venom, you wouldn't have Niflheim, which is true. Venom and Bulldozer are directly responsible for Niflheim. And the same could be said about those other projects, but they were so closely related as far as Bewitched and Death Witch especially. Then you've got Disaster, who came from Germany around the same time that this dropped. All kind of proliferating that same savage blackened thrash sound. Just perfect album. It's another one I've shown. Gorgoroth, Pentagram. It's a Century Black version. This album, man. I mean, what more needs to be said than that band photo? This album to me embodies the coldness and the harshness of Norwegian black metal better than anything else that dropped around the time this came out, which was 94. So same year as that fucking Niflheim. Just savage, primitive black metal. One of the things that really appealed to me about Gorgoroth, excuse me, early on, is they didn't have that like mystical, foresty sort of obsession. It was far more arcane and occult than that shit was. Which is probably why I latched onto that more than like Immortals' debut or the first 3 Darkthrone albums, not including Soulside Journey, or anything really that came out of that era. You know, it'd be tough to really sit down and like hash out exactly why it connected so much with me, other than the fact that like I've never been super outdoorsy, and initially that was one of the turnoffs of black metal, was its unadulterated devotion to like nature, being outside. And I'm a fucking urban kid at heart, you know, like I need the concrete, I need the technology, but I love that fucking primitive just rawness and harshness and evilness that Gorgoroth managed to evoke on Pentagram. They came pretty close to matching it on the follow-up Antichrist. I don't think it's as strong of an album. The Sign of Hell, not a bad third album. I honestly like Destroyer, their 4th record that came out after In the Sign of Hell, better. Probably because it's very mechanical sounding and very cold. And I think it's a spiritual successor to Pentagram, personally. What's next? It's another one I've talked about. The Black, the Priest of Satan. I've shown this tape before, I think when I initially got it. This is like an anniversary edition, came out a few years back. Really nice treatment of the album. Far better than the CD repress, which I've also got. John Novate, Dissection, wants you to fuck off and die in hell. Thanks, John. And what to say that hasn't already been said about the Black? Everything I said about that Gorgoroth record, Multiply that by about 5 to 10 again. We've got the Priest of Satan. Difference being, Gorgoroth was Norwegian, the Black was Swedish. Couldn't tell you who else was involved in the band. Just John for the first EP in that full length there. I know they did a second full length that came out in like 2008, something like that. No idea what that one sounds like. I've heard it's decent. But I cannot imagine that it does anywhere near the just the abrasion of the Priest of Satan. Such a raw, cold, just violent and hatred rife album. It's so good. It's perfect. I, at one point had an original, which I still did because that shit goes for bucks. Just fantastic stuff. And if you haven't heard it, you got to. It's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. It's another album I've talked about before. Dot Guard's Monumental Possession. This is a Century Black version. I didn't feel like getting the record out. I just grabbed as few records as I could. I wanted to get this one done quick. Lyrics on the inside. This is Don Guard's second album. Marty actually included their first album on his list, which is a worthy, very valid choice. But this one, for me, this is the album that won me over to Don Guard. And sadly, the last album by Don Guard that I give a fuck about. Don't like Satanic Art. Don't like 666 International. Never heard anything that came out after that. But this album, you want to talk about a perfect blend of black metal and thrash metal. This is the one right here. Hands down, nothing is wrong with this album. From the straight up black metal of Utopia running Scarlet to fucking Fluency. The title track Monumental Possession is just fucking epic. Angel Death, The Ultimate Reflection, everything on this album smokes, rips and tears like nothing for its time. And that was 1996. So we're getting on in years at this point. Just fucking fantastic. I can't recommend Don Guard's first two albums, Monumental Possession specifically, enough. Listen to that shit if you haven't. Next up, another record. Absu. I don't think this has actually come up yet. Absu from Dallas, Texas. One of the original purveyors of fucking American black metal, along with like Vaughn and Judas Iscariot, Thornspawn, Enemy. Absu came a little bit later. Their first album wasn't even black metal. In fact, much like Darkthrone, it was a fucking. You could argue that it has death metal elements, but it was a death metal album, in my opinion. They didn't really deal with much black metal until the album that preceded this one, The Son of Tippereth. I love this picture disc. It's Agonia repress from like 2008 or something like that, but it's fucking nice. It's pretty close to the original on Osmos. And I mean, what to say about Absu that hasn't been said at this point? Just masters of mythological occult metal. Pretentious mythological occult metal at that, but it fucking rules. That album specifically was the first album where they really caused me to pay attention. I had picked up some Tippereth prior to that, the trip to Amoeba Records in Berkeley around 98, I want to say. And when I heard this one, the follow-up, a little bit late, granted, but still, it's fucking blew my mind. It's a black thrash album, much like a lot of these, and you'll notice that theme kind of probably recurrent through this video, but it's fucking perfect. It rages in all the right places, ticks all the right boxes. They would up the ante, Third Storm, in their follow-up Terra, which is probably their most perfect moment as a band. But this is the album that really, I think, caused people to say, wow, this band is a fucking force in this black metal thing. Because at that point, you know, even 98, American black metal wasn't taken very seriously. Most of the bands doing it were playing really raw fucking death metal that sounded like it was recorded through a coffee can washing machine, or sounded like fucking Bulldozer or Venom, which, you know, isn't a bad thing in my mind, but at the time everybody was using bands like Burzum and Darkthrone and fucking Emperor and Satyricon as benchmarks in the genre. And Absu kind of showed that they could fucking go toe-to-toe with all those other groups at the time. Speaking of Norwegian black metal, Gehenna, Admiral Black. Brain Smasher actually showed this in a recent video. It's a different version. This is some shitty fucking Peaceville Super Disc repress, which I hate these fucking discs, but when this originally came out, I picked it up on vinyl. Let's say I picked it off of like blackmetal.com or something like that, when, you know, that shit still was what's the word? The problem with these fucking super discs is that it's impossible to get these books out. Just lyrics. Gehenna had existed for some time before this album came out. They had a few releases under their belts, and I had heard some of their earlier offerings, and I didn't like it. It was very synth heavy. Sounded a lot like the second fucking Obtained Enslavement album, which has since grown on me, but at the time when I first fucking discovered it, it just sounded like fucking carnival music. Same thing with like Cradle of Filth and fucking Dimmu Borgir. Fuck all that noise. So the first couple Gehennas didn't make an impact. This album, though, they more or less dropped all of the really elaborate keyboard embellishments. There's still synth on this album, but not much. This is probably my favorite album in 1998. I listened to the shit out of that record when it came out. So raw, so like mechanical and cold, and dare I say, fucking urban. I mean, look at the, you know, the cover right there. It's just, it's a different atmosphere than what you get on like Anthems to the Welcome at Dusk, which came out around the same time, or fucking Blizzard Beasts, or Opus Nocturne. You know, it's just a wholly different animal, and I think Gehenna's best offering. I was a big fan of the follow-up to that one, Murder, which they shifted completely. They went from symphonic black metal to just like a raw, savage, hatred-fueled black metal to a death metal band, basically, like pure deicide worship on Murder. But, you know, for what it is, it was a decent album. It was no Admiral Black, though. Like I said, they've never been as good as they are here. WW2 or WW by Gehenna, it's close. I think that was a great album, especially for when it dropped back in like the mid-2000s, but I know they put out another record that I've never heard, probably never will. So yeah, that was Gehenna. Marduk. Nobody has talked about Marduk, which is a shame. This album, Nightwing, 1998. This is what made me pay attention. Wolfpack t-shirt on fucking Frederick Anderson right there. This shit is savage. Nightwing, I want to say this packaging's stupid. I don't know why they decided to do it like that, but let me gather my thoughts here to talk about Nightwing. I had heard Marduk before Nightwing dropped. You know, Opus Nocturne, Those of Beyond Light were in heavy rotation between my homies and I at the time. But to me, it was always a little bit second rate. I couldn't really compare it to like the Norwegian stuff because Marduk is, you know, unapologetically Swedish. You know, at the time, what did you have to compare early Marduk to? You had Dark Funeral and fucking, you know, whatever. You can say, for every good thing you could say about Dark Funeral, you could say two bad things, as far as I'm concerned. Lord Belial, same story. I think the only band that really held a candle to Marduk was probably Cythereal, who I almost actually brought into this, but I did not, sadly. Sorhin, maybe. They're a little bit later, though. Napalm band, if I'm not mistaken. As far as this Marduk album goes, though, completely different atmosphere than what you got with the preceding albums. And the follow-up, wholly different with Panzer Division Marduk, which is just like ridiculous. Nightwing, it starts out just savage and feral and just goes for the throat right out of the gate. It's no holds barred fucking black metal with Legion, and this is probably of the albums that Legion performed with Marduk his best offering. I want to say preceding album to Nightwing, Panzer Division, Le Grand Dance Macabre, and then I think he was out at that point. I actually saw them on tour with Deicide, I want to say, for it was either Panzer Division or Le Grand Dance Macabre. And Legion Live was just a fucking force to be reckoned with. That guy took no shit when he was on stage, and he fucked some people up. And Marduk opened that fucking show and totally blew Deicide out of the water. Incredible. So it goes from that to like this slow, just driving, pulsing black metal with heft, like real weight behind it. Not only was it raw and super razor sharp, but it was also pummeling, that's not even a word, a pummeling heaviness that I feel like not a lot of people in black metal have been able to capture at the time. Starting with Dreams of Blood and Iron, basically where they start the Dracula story. You know, just fucking fantastic album. And you've got one of the tracks lifting the music from Subspecies. Just a genius move. Subspecies is an amazing album. So of course they picked it, given that it's a vampiric theme. You know, you gotta see Subspecies to kind of get the humor in that, but fucking great shit. This is gonna be a long one, folks, and I apologize, but I only got 2 left. So now we're getting to the 2000s. And I wanted to not be like exclusive, omitting stuff post 2000, because there are plenty of vinyl releases that have come out since that year. I kind of just picked 2 that have had a real impact on me as a listener, especially for the times that I heard them, as well as I think impacted their respected scenes. So I've got to show the Hexen's debut, Ritual Satanum. This fucking record, man. Look at that cover. And about what you would expect an album with this cover to sound like is what this sounds like. But man, do they do it well. This is not their first recording. They had demos prior to this. It's got a basic insert. And there were other Finnish bands at this point. Horna was recording. You had Barathrum, who fucking put out a string of amazing records in the mid to late 90s. Even Satanic Warmaster, I believe, had material by 2000 when this dropped. But this stuff, I want to say, predates Sargeist. And it's fantastic. It is just so raw, so melodic, so cold, so ritualistic and satanic. It's so satanic, it's almost like laughably absurd, but it's just fantastic, and I think it really did a lot to set the tone for melodic Finnish black metal at the time. Without the Hexen, I don't think there would be a Horna as we know it, or Satanic Warmaster. Specifically, probably not Goatmoon, who I don't care for, but I know that they're a big name these days. Really fucking phenomenal shit. And if you haven't heard that fucking debut, you gotta hear it. And then this is another one I've shown. Black Witchery and Conqueror split. Fucking Hellstorm of Evil Vengeance. This split is probably my favorite split ever. Show Without the Glare. Debut from, as far as anybody was concerned at the time, debut from Conqueror and Black Witchery. They both had tapes out prior to this release. But man, this really put them on the map at the time. I'd heard Blasphemy before this. Beherit, of course, Archgoat. Given that this, like I said, 2000. But man, these guys kind of took that template and they each did something wholly kind of unique at the time. That Conqueror combining that raw space sound with grindcore and a little bit of fucking of that D-beat heft like Wolfpack. It's unmistakably Conqueror. Revenge basically continued with that template. Black Witchery, a little bit thrashier, a little bit more melodic than the fucking Conqueror side, but nonetheless just as savage. And without them, you'd have no fucking like Proclamation or dare I say Titan Blood, fucking Catharsis. The list goes on. Shit's fucking sick. Check it out. Anyway, that's all I've got. I'm at the 38-minute mark. This video is way too fucking long. Peace out, YouTube.